let me start by introducing about Mongolia. As you are aware, Mongolia is a landlocked country, and it could be said in the heart of Asia, more particularly in Northeast Asia. We have two neighbors, Russia to the north and China to the south. So the total area, although our population is small, we have 3 million people, our area is quite large. So it is 1,564,000 square kilometers. So it means that Mongolia is 3 times bigger than Thailand. So it's like half of the Europe. So could we see it. As I just mentioned, our population is comparatively small, 3 million people, but around 1.3 million of them live in the capital. Traditionally, our way of life was based on animal husbandry, was nomadic, so therefore 30% of our population are herders, nomads, which move with their livestock from one place to another place during 2 or 3 times a year. We have a harsh continental climate with very long winters, but short and hot summers. So, for example, it's today now in Mongolia it's winter time, and it's around minus 20 Celsius at an average. Whereas in the summer sometimes it reaches plus 30, 34, but it's very dry. So our GDP per capita is 4,740 US dollars according to 2015, and Mongolia has been experiencing quite high economic growth only a few years ago because of the booming mining sector. But since today there is a global slowdown in mining, and the commodity prices dropped significantly. So that's why economic growth is has slowed down, and for this year we expect the economic growth to be around 2.4%. In terms of foreign trade, Mongolia, before 1990, Mongolia was a socialist country, communist country with the centrally planned economy. And since 1990, we have started to implement simultaneously political and economic reforms, and today we have a market-oriented economy, mostly based on natural resources, agriculture, and livestock. Figures for foreign trade situation. As you see, the figure shows foreign trade balance, export and imports in millions of US dollars. Our export commodities are mostly copper, because Mongolia is a very country rich in natural resources, mostly copper, coal, molybdenum, tin, tungsten, gold, cashmere, and natural fabric. It occupies around 80% of the export. So our main our main markets for our export are China, Switzerland, UK, Germany, and Russia. Our largest trading partner is China, so therefore around 32%, to be exactly 32.2% of our imports come from China, and then followed by Russia, Japan, Republic of Korea, US and Germany. So, as I just mentioned before, and today our economy is experiencing difficulties. I think it's almost everywhere in the world because of the drop of the commodity prices, and there is a general slowdown in economy. But recently we have had election in July this year, and our new government is working on the improving economy of the country, and also improving the improving the business environment. As for Thailand, Thailand is not, of course, because of our geographical distances. We have very modest economic relations, and therefore at first I will at the beginning I will talk about mostly political relations between our two countries. Mongolia and Thailand established diplomatic relations in 1974, 42 years ago, and in 2000 and 2 years ago we celebrated the 40th anniversary of our diplomatic relations. Although the modern history of our relations is not that long, but there are also some historical records that can also relate to early exchanges, even maybe in 13th or 14th century. You all know that once in 13th century, Mongolia was well known in the world as we created the largest empire in land area to have ever existed. And during that time, you all know Kublai Khan, who was the grandson of Genghis Khan. He established Yuan dynasty in China. So we call it more like a Mongolian Yuan empire, Mongolian Yuan state. And whereas in the historical records of the other countries, like in China, it's called as a Yuan dynasty. During that time, recently I read in one historical books published here in Thailand that kings of Ayutthaya kingdom used to visit Beijing, which was at that time a capital of our empire. And so it means that there were at least exchanges between Mongolians who ruled China and also Thais, even at that time. But however, in the modern times, later Mongolia fell under the rule of Manchu Qing dynasty, and in 1911 we declared, after following the revolution in China in 1911, in Xinhai Revolution, we declared our independence, and it could be said that we restored our independence. And since that time, then in 1921 there was a People's Revolution in Mongolia, and from that time the history of the modern Mongolia begins. So as I just mentioned, we established our relations in 1974 during the Cold War period. At that time Mongolia was a communist country, Thailand was on the other side of the Cold War, so understandably there was not much relations from 1974 to 1990s. Only, our ambassadors from in other countries like in India or Japan, later Laos, used to come to Thailand to present their credentials. So relations were mostly symbolic in nature. But the early 1990s, when Mongolia started its democratic reforms, when it started to open up to the world, the bilateral relations between our two countries have been intensified. Thailand today is one of our major partners in Southeast Asia. So it was one of the first countries in Southeast Asia that supported our democratic reforms. So, and our good relations are reflected in many high-level visits. this figure, this text shows on the few most important visits, which I would like to specifically emphasize. That the visits by Her Royal Highness Princess Maha Chakri Sirinton. She visited Mongolia 2 times in 1992 and 2009. Our president visited Thailand in 1994, and Prime Minister visited in 2005. So, I want to also to point out here that thanks to the visit by Her Royal Highness Princess Sirinton, Thailand has become very well known to Mongolia general public, and also I hope that also Thai people have a better understanding of Mongolia thanks to also her visits. From the Thai side, we have hosted quite a number of visits at a high level. Speakers of the Senate and House representatives visited Mongolia, and former Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra visited Mongolia in 2013. She was the first Thai Prime Minister to visit Mongolia, and during her visit, our governments signed agreement to set up the consultative body on bilateral cooperation. It's like a joint commission, so it's an intergovernmental mechanism of cooperation. So this, and today we are working with our Thai counterparts to convene its first session, possibly next year. So this intergovernmental mechanism is designed to stimulate our cooperation in all areas, of course in political area, and besides that, which is very important, between the businesses and private sectors of our two countries. And for me, this mechanism is also very personally, it's very important, because I see it as one of my main goals during my tenure here is to strengthen and also to upgrade our economic relations. This year, as Mr. Chatterjee has just mentioned, we hosted the ASEM Summit, and current Prime Minister General Prayut Chan-o-cha went to Mongolia, attended this international gathering, and also during that, on the sidelines of this event, he met with our president. So, all in all, it could be said that all these visits paved the way for the further development of our bilateral cooperation, and increased the mutual understanding between our two peoples. I would like to show you some slides with photos, and this photo is taken during Her Royal Highness's first visit to Mongolia. It's in 1992, in October 1992, and the man sitting next to the princess is our then first president of Mongolia, Mr. Ochirbat. He was also the first head of state of Mongolia who visited Thailand later after 2 years. So this is next slide, please. So this photo shows our president, then president, paying a courtesy call on His Majesty the King His Majesty King Bhumibol in February 1994. During his visit, we signed a few agreements, agreement on opening air services, agreement on abolition of visas for holders of diplomatic and official passports, and then later, after a few years, we signed an agreement to non-visa agreement for all forms of passports. So Mongolians can travel to Thailand without visa, and also Thai people can travel to Mongolia without visa and stay for 30 days, for 1 month. So it started all in 1994. So next slide, please. This photo shows the Prime Minister Prayut meeting as our president during the ASEM summit. This photo was taken in July this year, a very recent photo. So this mostly I briefly introduced to you about our exchanges, our bilateral exchanges in the political area. Now let me move to the economic relations. Next slide, please. So in economic area, our achievements are quite modest compared to the political area. So that's why we should, of course, concentrate more on firming up our cooperation in the economy and investments and trade. Our bilateral trade volume is figure shows it's 33.9 million as of September this year, and export from Mongolia to Thailand is around $385,600, whereas import is there is mostly more products imported from Thailand rather than from Mongolia to Thailand. So our main export products to Thailand are like molybdenum or scarpalinium. It's like also commodities, and also this tannic queen and bovine hides, electric motors, and air pumps, and this is these figures were taken from the official statistics. Whereas main imports from Thailand are understandably sugar, rice, refrigerators, paper, aluminum cans, and so on. So Mongolians mostly know very well Thai sugar, rice, and also paper. This paper that we use in everyday office work, most of them come from Thailand. So compared to 20 years ago, but we can also be proud of that. There is some progress in investments. For example, today's total Thailand investments in Mongolia is around $1 billion. So the main areas of investments, of course, mining and also health. So Thailand's Bampu Group, which is the biggest mining group, which I think has operations in China, in Indonesia, in Laos, and the other countries. It has also invested in Mongolia and purchased one coal company. And they have, I think, more than 200 licenses to operate in Mongolia, and some few sites. Three to four sites, and their total investments is around $700 million. And also Thailand's Bumrungrad Hospital has made investment in Mongolia. It owns 51% of shares in Mongolia's Songdo Hospital, and it also has its representative office in Ulaanbaatar. Thailand has become quite a popular destination for Mongolians, not only for tourists but also for not only for leisure tourists, but also for medical tourists. Along with Japan and Korea, Thailand is also a popular place for people for medical checkups, and so on. But we, of course, we should not be satisfied with the current level of investment, and we should strive to increase our economic cooperation. So therefore we see that there are few, of course, investments because of the geographical distances, investment cannot be increased in all areas of economy. So for us, I think there are some priority areas where we could concentrate our attention. So these areas are mining, renewable energy, tourism, health, and agriculture. And besides, I will talk about this more in detail later, but before that, let me introduce to you about one ongoing project of Mongolian Kashmir and Thai silk incorporated together into one brand name. It was not final. It was not finalized yet. But as you probably know, Mongolia is very well known for its very good quality cashmere. In fact, we can say that our cashmere has the best quality in the world. So that's why Thailand is very well known for its silk. So that's why some of our businesses have explored the possibility of combining these two fine products into making one brand, into one product. So the first exhibition of this project, I think, was shown to the Thai public in 2 years ago in central in Siam Paragon shopping plaza. So I hope that businesses will now continue this project. It could be very potentially quite a good sign of our cooperation. So now I will go back to the areas of our possible cooperation. Of course, it's firstly this mining. Besides Bampu Group, of course, other Thai investors are very much welcome to make investment in Mongolia, because we have substantial natural resources and minerals, and which promise an unprecedented growth potential. So with up to 31 tons of ore, which contains most of the 17 earth elements located in the 5 main deposits, and so Mongolia accounts for 16.77% of the world's reserves. And as for November 2015, the mining sector compounds 16.1% of our GDP, 19.6% of state revenues, and 67.4% of total manufacturing in the industrial sector, and 79.3% of our export earnings. Talking about this natural resources, the central and eastern part of Mongolia are relatively well studied. So, but western part of the country, for example, is still untapped, and so it means there is a great potential for discovery of new deposits. So around 70% of our foreign direct investments annually targets the mining sector, but falling global coal and copper prices have little bit at the moment have dampened the investor sector. So the mining sector is obviously the prevailing sector of our economy and main base for our trade in the industry. However, we face these disadvantages of being over-dependent on one sector. So that's why we consider developing value-added industrial sector in urgency. So this global slowdown and has gave us an idea how to, diversify our economy in the future. Besides mining, of course, there is a very good potential to develop cooperation in the agricultural sector. We apart from this mining, we have very broad opportunities and potentials to develop this traditional agricultural sector. So this sector is one of the priority sectors in our country's economy and cultural heritage, because we are traditionally nomads. So, and this food and agriculture sector compounds around 20% of our GDP. So, and 28.6% of our total population work in this sector, in agriculture. Whereas 73.6% of Mongolian land is land for agriculture. Besides that, we have significant potentials in renewable energy sources. Mongolia has a huge potential to export renewable electricity across Northern Asia, and we, according to the Renewable Readiness Assessment by the International Renewable Energy Agency, Mongolia's mostly untapped renewable resources could be used to kickstart a major cross-border power corridor between Russia, Mongolia, China, South Korea, and Japan. I know also in Southeast Asia there are also talks about creating this power corridor among the countries in Southeast Asia. And in the future, of course, it sounds very premature, but there are some, I think, academicians at Chulalongkorn. I've recently visited the Russia-ASEAN Economic Cooperation seminar at Chulalongkorn University, and one Russian scientist talked about the possibility of incorporating these two electricity corridors, Southeast Asian to Northeast Asia, and maybe it could be one another area of our closer interaction. So, Mongolia's famous Gobi Desert has a vast renewable energy potential of 2.6 terawatt. And Mongolia's current power generation capacity is currently made up of just 7% from the renewable, and our government set a target of 20% renewables by the year 2023 and 30% by the year 2030. So Mongolia, our parliament recently adopted broad measures aimed at future sustainability, including green development policy and the law on energy conservation and efficiency. So the new law enables us to provide energy security and reliability. I can also talk about wind power, solar energy, and hydropower. In wind power, we have a potential to become one of the major wind power producers. And our wind power classification of good to excellent wind power resources are equivalent to 1,113,300 megawatt of wind electricity. As for solar energy, about 270 to 300 sunny days per year, with an average sunlight duration of 2,250 to 3,300 hours, and they are available in most regions of Mongolia. So annual average amount of solar energy is 1.4 thousand per 2 meter with, and our solar intensity is like 4.3 to 4.7 per day. So there is one Thai company which is interested in making investment in launching this 50 megawatt pilot project. They are ready to invest, and there are some talks going on in this direction. And I hope that this solar energy sector could be another lucrative area in our cooperation. We also have a in hydropower, there are many 3,800 small and big streams and rivers in our country, which could support up to
6,417.7 megawatt of power and deliver 56.2 billion megawatt of electric energy annually. So this renewable energy sector it can be summarized that it can be potentially a very promising area in our cooperation. Previously I mentioned about the health sector is a very promising area of the cooperation where Thailand has already made an investment. So our government has been committed to ensuring sustainable funding to the health sector and providing accessible and equitable quality healthcare to all citizens. So to this end, we have a high potential for investor to sustain healthcare system. So since Bumrungrad has already made investment in Mongolia, and other Thai investors are also welcome, certainly welcome there. The last but not least area where we could successfully cooperate is the tourism. Mongolia is very well known to the world as the birthplace of Genghis Khan, and we have a lot of natural landscape and rich history and culture. So that's why it is one of the very great adventure destination in Asia. In recent years, our government introduced a series of inspiring measures to improve infrastructure and promote tourism, and has set an ambitious short and medium-term objectives for the sector, which include boosting international arrivals to 600,000 people in 2015 and 1 million by 2017. Compared to 20 years ago, our tourism services are becoming better and better. International chains are opening up their hotels in Mongolia. Recently, the Shangri-La, Holiday Inn, they all Kempinski, they are all operate in Mongolia, and as a matter of fact, this ASEM summit was held in Shangri-La. Yes, so that's why tourism is one of the most important sectors of Thailand, and you have a very rich, a lot of experiences to share. So that's why we are very much interested in learning from experiences, from your experiences and how to develop and attract tourists. We cannot, of course, host so many tourists as here in Thailand, but still we aim to learn and to improve our tourism sector. As I just mentioned, we have a non-visa agreement between our two countries, and so that's why promotion of people-to-people contacts is, of course, very important in this regard. There are figures that showing that around 8,000 to 10,000 Mongolians come to Thailand each year. So, as just mentioned before, most of them are, of course, tourists, but also medical tourism is on the rise, and that's and there are some. We have also some charter flights coming from Ulaanbaatar, our capital, to Bangkok from time to time, and but unfortunately, not so many Thai people visit Mongolia, because I think it's because of the maybe it is not so well known, and because there are no direct flights. 2 years ago, for example, we used to have a charter flight, direct charter flight, regular flights between Mongolia and Bangkok. Ulaanbaatar and Bangkok, but it was run by our one private company, but unfortunately they stopped service. But we are planning, our national carrier is planning to resume this. It took over from that company, and it's planning to resume this direct flights. So with this, with opening of the direct flights, reopening of the direct flights, I hope that there will be more tourists to travel with each other, to each other. We maybe geographically we are quite far apart. Mongolia is in Northeast Asia, Thailand is in Southeast Asia, but nevertheless there are some similarities, cultural similarities between our two people. We are both Buddhist countries. So in Thailand you practice Theravada Buddhism, in Mongolia it's Mahayana, or some people say it's Vajrayana, it's like a Tibetan form of Buddhism. So that's why this religious tourism can be also promoted, I think. And Thai tourists also can experience Mongolia by traveling by Trans-Siberian, right? I think it's quite well known, especially for Western tourists. They take train from Beijing and travel to Mongolia, pass through Mongolia, and then spend a few days over there, and then continue to Moscow, to Russia. So I think for young people it would be very interesting to experience this travel. I think this is mostly basically, and before I forget, currently you can travel to Mongolia through 3 ways, either through Beijing, Hong Kong, or Seoul. So it will not take so much hours. So that's why I would like to urge you to travel to Mongolia to see our culture, our people, nomadic way of life, and also experience very different natural sceneries in here. So thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, I would be very glad to respond. Thank you.
You can take the microphone, young lady. You can take the microphone from the side table. No, it's down there, that side. Yeah. Please. Tell us your name and your question, okay?
My name is Wenting Zhao from China. And first, thanks for your impressive talk. And I want to ask, because China has the strategy One Belt, One Road, and it will connect China and to the world, and it also will connect China and Mongolia. And what I want to ask is, what do you think about One Belt, One Road and the economic relation between China and Mongolia?
China is our very important neighbor and our important partner, of course, and we have shared very long history of interactions between our two peoples throughout many centuries of close relations, and there were ups and downs in our relations, but now today we have very good relations, and as we both our sides consider our relations in the best period of their history. So when President Xi Jinping visited Mongolia in 2014, we elevated our relations to comprehensive strategic partnership. So, and China is our main trading partner, our main investor. So, and of course, this issue of connectivity is becoming very important for all countries in the region, of course, including Mongolia. And in the Chinese One Belt, One Road initiative, I think if you see, there is one publication published in China, and it also mentions Mongolia. So Mongolia, China, there is an economic corridor between Mongolia, China, and Russia. So in this project is called Step Road. And in Russia they have this Eurasian also economic zone, and in China One Belt, One Road. And recently there is we signed an agreement on economic corridor between our three countries. So this economic corridor will be directly connected to the Belt and Road Initiative. And we have been developing cooperation in this area, and there is a trilateral mechanism established quite recently in 2014. So first, this trilateral summit at a very high level, at the summit level between our three presidents of Mongolia, China, and Russia, they launched this mechanism. So that's why the main idea is to strengthen connectivity. So that's why I think that it will continue to be developed further and further.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Gentlemen, go with your question.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Ayush I'm from Nepal. And my question to you is, back home also we've got, for tourism we say naturally Nepal, please visit Nepal. Even in our neighboring country, India, they say Atiti Dev Bhava. And even in, let's say, Malaysia, they say Malaysia truly Asia, and they're promoting tourism in their own way. Don't you think it would be a good step ahead if Mongolia also tries to, let's say, publicize its natural beauty and its natural habitat to allure tourists in their country? That's my question for you.
Of course, I fully agree with you, and this. If I correctly understood, you talked that tourism should be promoted with a particular motto, right?
Motto campaign.
And Thailand, it's amazing Thailand, and India, incredible India, Malaysia is like one Asia or something like this. And for Mongolia, we also have this motto, and it's called I think inspiring Mongolia. So that's why we aim to develop our tourism. We cannot, of course, like other countries in Asia with large population, we cannot build up so many hotels and across the country. But there is a very good potential for us is to promote our natural virgin and natural beauty, and also promote this trekking tourism, adventure tourism. Also, it could be one of potential areas. I think that did I answer your question, or if you no? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I would just like to jump in and say that perhaps you should think of a model.
Yes, you are welcome to give me to give us more ideas in this regard. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, think of the model, and then you propose it to His Excellency. He then will link you with the tourism of Mongolia, and do an independent research study on that. Maybe work on a thesis. Sorry for interjecting.
No,
Okay?
thank you. Yes.
From this side, then the next question, the gentleman there. Very good. Tell us your name.
I'm Jacob. I'm a dual Thai U.S. national. I have a background in biology here. You said that there's a significant proportion of Mongolian tourists coming to Thailand for medical services, right? Mm-hmm. Why is that? What's lacking in your country's infrastructure?
I think, firstly, how it all started is that there was one SOS Medica small hospital in Mongolia, international hospital. It's like branch. So they, provided services to expats in Mongolia, and most of this because there was not sufficient technical medical equipment. So their patients were transferred to Thailand, to Bamrungrad Hospital. So that's why there was a word about the Bamrungrad Hospital, and I think that most Mongolians know about Bamrungrad, but they don't know about other hospitals. Besides Bamrungrad, there are so many excellent hospitals because I live here, so that's why I know. But for Mongols, it's like everything is like Bamrungrad. So that's why I think from mouth to mouth, this become very well known, and then Bamrungrad later seized this opportunity. They opened their office in Mongolia, and then they later expanded their operations and bought shares, majority of shares in one Mongolian modern hospital. So that's why I think, especially at first, quite, wealthy Mongolians, started to come here for medical checkup, and then later on, I think, of course, it's not like average people cannot, I think, afford, but more or less, with the market economy, people are getting, a little bit more, they can afford such expenditures. So that's why I think medical tourism is on rise.
Okay. And do the regulations of your country allow for foreign national medical practitioners, foreign doctors to practice medicine in Mongolia?
Yes,
Yes?
that's right.
Okay, so it's different from here.
they are more than welcome, of course. So this, I think, of course, there must be some requirements, whatever. But generally, it is the case. But we have, in 70 years of the socialist period, of course, we do have introduced the modern European medical system, health system. So that's why we do have our own doctors, medical staff. But of course, but nowadays I think we do experience some problems in the health sectors because of lack of doctors, and because of urbanization, and there are many people moving from countryside to Ulaanbaatar. So health system is now one of the priority areas for our government to improve. Yeah.
Okay, so would you say that the proportion of nomadic lifestyle in your country is decreasing?
Yes, it is decreasing. Young people for example, in the countryside, they prefer to move to the city because they think it's better education, better health, possible opportunities. So that's why there is a such trend. But yeah.
Okay, so maybe we should go visit while we can still experience.
Yes, of course. You're welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Great idea. Why don't you guys band together, and we could approach His Excellency for advice as to which would be the most feasible places to visit, stay, do a survey. Yeah. While Chula and Thammasat think about theories, we think about the practical. Okay? So you guys should do that. Okay, great. From this side, and this time we would request a lady to ask a question to keep things balanced out. Who would go? Yeah, the ladies do not have leadership. Huh? Okay, so anyone else with a question? Ehsan, would you like to go? Okay, the lady right here. The microphone. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Good.
I want to know what's the majority nationality that will visit Mongolia, because we can tell it's like nothing is really like well known that we can visit Mongolia, and this is definitely not a first choice that we want to visit. So I want to know what's the majority nationality that will visit Mongolia, and do you think that if the opening of the tourism is developing more, it would affect the living culture of the residents that would live there? Because you said that the 30% of the resident is like semi-nomadic and nomadic, right?
Yeah.
Would it affect their living style?
Talking about nomadic, so you could think that they live in today's period of globalization. Nomadic doesn't mean that they are totally secluded from the world. So these nomads, they have TVs, the satellite dishes. They are like farmers, like every day. And now they own their cars, tractors. So that's why nomadic is probably, when you hear about this, it gives you an idea that it's like totally secluded, like in tribes or something like that. It's not that case. As for majority of tourists coming to Mongolia, they are mostly from the countries in our sub-region, from Japan, from of course from China, Japan, from Korea, South Korea, and also from Europe. Traditionally, we have had a very close relations with close ties to Europe and through Central and Eastern Europe, and then of course we have visitors from Western Europe, from the U.S. and from many countries in the world. Mongolia, is like a popular destination also. Like I forgot to mention for hunting, and we probably have you heard about the Gobi Desert? Gobi Desert. It's a very well-known place and in the world, and but our natural landscape is very varies. It's not like only steppes in desert. It's in the south we have famous Gobi Desert. In the east there are plains. To the north there are forests. In the west mostly forests and mountains. And then in the northern part we have many lake, like Hupsugul Lake. Its place is. Have you heard about the Baikal Lake in Russia? So it is in the same basin. So they are like sister lakes. So that's why our this untouched nature is could be one of major drivers for for the growth of tourism. And in the city, it's like Ulaanbaatar. It's a modern city. It has all convenient. I mentioned about the opening of the new hotel chains and all conveniences like free or like Wi-Fi, whatever. That has very vibrant also nightlife. Yeah. Okay.
But I think also a case in point could be for tourism, for religious tourism, for Buddhism, for example.
Yeah, it
right?
could be. Yes.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
It would be fascinating. Okay. Can we have Professor Pum's students from the Faculty of Law? Anyone from our undergraduate program? Can you pass it down to Professor Pum and his students? Maybe there is a question to ask. They all are very shy, huh? Okay, while we are waiting for you, Father Borges, do you have a question? Dr. Borges is the ABAC Loyola Program Director. He is a European historian of Jesuit mission. Father, you have a question, perhaps, or a comment?
Well, yeah, my name is Father Charles Borges, Jesuit priest. Thank you for your fascinating talk, and I'm always certainly fascinated by the history of Mongolia, and sometimes you wonder, at one time in history the Mongols were all over the world. They were the colonizers. They were they conquered such a lot of territory, that hardiness, etc. Do you think there's something lacking in the present generation of Mongolia that doesn't put it on the forefront of the world stage? I'm just wondering what exactly would you think are some of the things that were once so prominent in the history of the Mongols or Mongolia and today may not be there? Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's a question, but it's just insight that I have.
Of course, we have a very proud and rich history. So I think that it is thanks to the history that we now have our statehood. As I just mentioned, we have very small population of people, 3 million in Mongolia. But besides Mongolia, there is also Inner Mongolian Autonomous Region in China, where there are more Mongolians than living in our country. Also in Russia, there are 2 regions with Mongolian population, like Buryatia near the lake. Also Kalmykia, it's even in Europe. So they are all descendants of Mongols. And there are also, in Afghanistan, for example, like Hazaras. They are also believed to be descendants of Mongol warriors. In Iran, there could be also of the Ilkhanate period, and whatever. And also in India, Mongols, they were this descendant of Mongols. So, but why? I think every empires they have a certain periods of time. For example, Mongolian Empire lasted for even 3 centuries, two centuries, more than 200 years. So that's why it is inevitable that empires rise and then they fall. So that's why, of course, Mongolians lost their province. But also because we had a very strong leader as Genghis Khan, that could unite, this nomad people into one force. So that's why it is thanks to this personality we have established our state, and then we became prominent on the world stage. Currently, of course, if you follow also international news and also regional news, maybe it cannot. Mongolia is not is a very active player also in the international. In the regional arena. Of course, it cannot be compared to some bigger countries, but we do have, since 1990s, we have been, conducting very open and proactive foreign policy. Our foreign policy is we call it multi-pillar foreign policy. We have two physical big neighbors, Russia and China, but besides that, we have a concept of the third neighbor. Third neighbor means all countries. It's like a group of countries that support our reforms, and it includes U.S., Japan, Asia Pacific countries. We are active member of the United Nations since 1991. Recently we were elected to the UN Human Rights Council. We hosted this ASEM summit. It's where more than 53 heads of state and government from Asia and Europe, also including Thailand, gathered in Mongolia. We are also very active in peacekeeping. Our peacekeepers, for example, they are deployed in many parts of the hotspots around the world, in Somalia, in Afghanistan, in Kosovo, in Lesotho, so in Africa, sorry, and in many spots. So it cannot be said that we are like are not noticeable. To the best extent of our possibilities, we try to be very active on the international arena. Yeah, I could say. So, okay, thank you.
I would like to add that His Excellency is perhaps one of the most dynamic ambassadors in the diplomatic corps right now. Okay, so that is testament to the ascent, I think, of Mongolia. Can we go to Professor Pum and his students? Do you have a question, young lady?
My name is Viraya Sayavanon. I'm from Faculty of Law. Well, I want to ask that, how is the investment law in Mongolia helping foreign investors?
The investment law, okay.
It's a very serious question. Just we have since 1990s, since our country opened up to the world, we have created very we had created very favorable investment environment, business environment for investors. For example, many prominent, especially because, as I just said, mining is a very big area, very important area for investors. So most of investments come into the mining sector. So Rio Tinto, for example, a very well-known international, transnational corporation, a British Australian company, has invested in the copper project in Mongolia in Oyu Tolgoi. It has very large reservoirs of the copper in the world, and also there are there is a Tawan Tolgoi economic power. Tawan Tolgoi coking coal deposit, one of the largest in the world. So there are investors from many countries are welcome to make investments in this coal sector. So I will give you some figures. So it's like our competitiveness. So this indicators, we have provide our investors with a variety, of to be precise, the investment law provides any entity whose investment value that will exceed 500 billion Mongolian tugrik, with an option to enter into investment agreement with our government. So this investment agreement may stipulate a longer stabilization period and the time frame set in the investment law. So with the, it means that the long-term investors, it will be, our government will conclude a special stability agreement, so whereby it will protect their interests of investors. So the two sides take this kind of commitments. So also there are also a variety of tax and other tax and non-tax benefits from the government of Mongolia. I can, because it's a very, very broad area, very broad topic to discuss. Maybe I will send to Dr. Pum the copy of the, not only law, but the whole package of the which could be of interest for investors. So.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you. So, young lady, your question will be answered in a fuller scope by His Excellency through the information that will be sent to Professor Pum. Okay? Okay. And I think that would be a very good, storehouse of knowledge for you guys.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Professor Voiku, if you don't take the floor, then we can't close the forum. Okay? So, would you like to respond or ask a question to His Excellency?
I have no question, but I have a comment, a positive comment. Your Excellency, thank you very much for the whole presentation and for mentioning several times the fact that Mongolia was the host of the Asia-Europe meeting at the summit level in July this year. I want to emphasize the fact that in the history of Mongolian diplomacy, that was the most important event, and as explained by His Excellency, Mongolia has a long history. 53 countries plus the Secretary General of ASEAN, the President of the European Union were present there. So that was really a very, very important event. And for those who are interested in business, in addition to the political summit, so there was a business summit. Parliamentarians also from the countries from Europe and Asia were present there. And you see, we here in Bangkok, we are to some extent familiar to meetings between ASEAN and the European Union because there is an agreement. But what happened in Mongolia was something going beyond relations just between ASEAN and the European Union. Why? Because many Asian countries like India, like Pakistan, like Mongolia, who are not members of ASEAN, were present there. And also some countries like Australia, like New Zealand, which belong in fact to another geographical area, were present there. From the perspective of Europe, not only the 28 members of the European Union took part there, but also countries which are not members of the European Union, like Switzerland and like Norway. And I am very glad to hear, I learned today that Switzerland is one of the main partners in business with Mongolia. So that was a great success. And just to finish on a positive note, to keep that in mind, among the decisions taken during ASEM, which celebrated 20 years of its existence in Mongolia, there was a decision which will be pleasantly, I think, received both by Asian and by Europeans during the first week of March. Every year we'll celebrate Europe-Asia Day. Europe-Asia Day. And that is in recognition of the role of Thailand, which was the very first host of ASEM. The first ASEM summit took place in March 1996 in Bangkok. And the participants were received by His Majesty King Bhumibol Adulyadej. That was a great event, a great diplomatic event in Thailand, and the most recent similar event was in Mongolia. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for mentioning that to our audience.
Thank you, Ambassador Voicu, the former ambassador from Romania to Thailand, okay, responding to a current ambassador. I would just like to add that, His Excellency, I think, has really served a great purpose this afternoon in bringing a new dimension to our Speaker of the Month events. His comments, Your Excellency, have been outstanding. We commend you for such a good presentation. We thank you for enlightening us further on the developments within Mongolia and what's in it for really Thailand, for China, from Myanmar, for Nepal, for all of the world. What's in it for all of the world in Mongolia? I think what we have to do is to respond to His Excellency's enthusiastic presentation by somehow planning to visit Mongolia. Okay, I think we should put together a visit to Mongolia to believe that we will have a better sense of what happens over there. In any event, I want to thank you very much. Okay, Your Excellency. Let's put our hands together for His Excellency. Professor Phum, can I invite you, please? Okay. You've been very quiet, so let me ask you to say a few words first. Okay, I know that the ambassador is a childhood friend of yours, so please come, okay, and tell us a few words of thanks to His Excellency, and then I would like you to come forward to do something more, okay?
Okay, on behalf of ABAC community, thank you very much for lecturing here, and we expect that you are coming back more often in the near future. Thank you very much.
Very good. Come forward, okay? Ehsan, can you come forward as well? There is a plaque of recognition that we would like to hand to His Excellency. So can you please fetch that plaque, Ehsan? Yeah, maybe you should come up. Dang. Is that all right for the photograph? Yeah. Hey, no, the plaque. Yeah. Come on. Isan, wake up. Okay, let's put our hands together for okay. And maybe what I should do is to invite Professor Hoiku, on behalf of the Graduate School of Business, can you come forward, sir? And please hand over a little memento of appreciation from Assumption University, okay, to His Excellency. Maybe His Excellency might like some Mongolian wine and that. Okay. That be your name. Okay. Right. Okay, so put your hands together once more. Now, let's do this. I want to have a special photograph on this occasion. So can we all go and stand on the steps? All right, leave your bags and everything here. We are going to do a group picture on the stairway, okay, in front. Leave your bags and books over here. Don't worry about it. Just come. Your Excellency, please come. We'll do a picture together. Leave your books and bags. You're coming back.